Recently, US President Donald Trump ordered the military to prepare for action in Nigeria to tackle Islamist militant groups, accusing the government of failing to protect Christians. They're killing record numbers of Christians in Nigeria. They're killing the Christians and killing them in very large numbers. We're not going to allow that to happen, the US president said. So why is there so much violence in Nigeria? And is it true that the Christians are mainly targeted? The region in which this West African country is located, the most densely populated on the African continent, was involved in the slave trade until the 19th century. In 1914, the territory became a British colony, being under influence as a so-called protectorate since 1900. A system of indirect rule was introduced. This was based on the authority of traditional leaders and emphasized the differences between the largest communities, the Hausa, the Igbo, and the Yoruba. Nationalism gained momentum, especially after the Second World War. In 1945, Nnamdi Azikiwe founded the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons, with a view to unifying and liberating the country. In 1948, the Macpherson Constitution introduced universal suffrage, and an Africanization policy for senior officials was launched. On October 1st, 1960, Nigeria became a republic within the British Commonwealth, with Nnamdi Azikiwe as president and Abubakar Tafawa Balewa as prime minister. In 1961, following a referendum, part of British Cameroon was annexed to Nigeria. The north of the country is predominantly Muslim, while the south is mainly Christian. In addition, there are more than 250 ethnic groups, such as the Hausa in the north, Muslim, and the Igbo in the south, Christian. During the colonial period, the British largely succeeded in keeping ethnic strife under control. Today, the largest tribes are constantly embroiled in a struggle for power. During decolonization, most of the groups seeking independence were ethnic in nature. It was the peoples who united themselves, not the state of Nigeria. Therefore, the British proposed to transform Nigeria into a federation of different states, each with its own autonomy, and a federal government consisting of ministers provided by the states. After independence from Great Britain, ethnic tensions in Nigeria increased. The feudal Muslims in the north depended on the oil revenues from the Igbo areas, while the well-educated Igbo wanted to see more of the profits from their area. These tensions led to a coup by Igbo officers in January 1966, in which the Prime Minister and the Premier of the North were assassinated. A counter-coup by Islamic officers in July 1966 ultimately resulted in the massacre of Christians in the North, in which some 30,000 Igbo were killed. The military governor of southeastern Nigeria then declared the independence of the Igbo territories on May 30th, 1967, which continued as the Republic of Biafra. This secession was followed on July 6th, 1967 by an invasion of Biafra by the Nigerian army. A Biafran counterattack in central western Nigeria was repelled in August 1967, after which Biafra lost more and more territory. The Biafrans, who had far fewer soldiers and weapons, were no match for the Nigerian army. During the war, an estimated 1 to 3 million Nigerians died, mainly from starvation but also from violence. After the fall of Biafra's capital, Enugu, many Biafrans fled to the fields and forests. The country was surrounded. A major problem was that Nigeria only allowed the Red Cross to bring medicine to Biafra and no food. This led to a famine, which many critics blamed on the Red Cross. The Nigerian army, which deliberately bombed markets, hospitals, and other civilian targets, and the famine proved too much for the Igbo people. On January 13, 1970, Biafra was forced to surrender, bringing an end to the Republic of Biafra. Separatism among the Igbo in southern Nigeria persisted. A report by Amnesty International reveals that the Nigerian army killed at least 150 Biafra activists in May 2016. However, the Nigerian government denies these allegations. So what is going on in Nigeria in recent years? Because the country, home to 220 million people, is subjected to violence. Nigeria is dealing with a mix of insurgency, ethnic and religious conflict, separatist movements and organized criminal violence, all of which vary by region. There's an ongoing insurgency in the northeast. This is primarily driven by the extremist group Boko Haram and its splinter factions. The Islamic State West Africa Province, the ISWAP, they have been active for years, causing massive displacement and a humanitarian crisis. They basically target everybody that is not them, Christians and Muslims alike. The northwest and north central of Nigeria are plagued by banditry. Highly organized criminal groups, often referred to as bandits, engage in mass kidnappings for ransom, cattle rustling, and deadly raids on villages. This violence has become widespread and deadly, displacing over 1 million people. There is escalating violence between predominantly Muslim pastoralists, herders, often ethnic Fulani, and mostly Christian farmer communities in the central Middle Belt region, but now spreading further south. The conflict is driven by competition over land, water, and grazing routes, exacerbated by climate change and population growth. The southeast groups, like the indigenous people of Biafra, are agitating for the independence of the Biafra region, leading to clashes with Nigerian security forces and creating significant unrest. And there is the militancy and criminality in the Niger Delta. Although long-running militancy against the oil industry has largely receded, criminal activities like oil theft and organized gang violence persists in the oil-rich South region. A distortion of the facts and taken out of context. This is how the Nigerian security expert described Donald Trump's threats to Nigeria because of violence against Christians. At the same time, they see the American attention for the security crisis in the country as an opportunity to obtain more military aid in the fight against terrorist violence. Trump threatened to cut all financial aid to Nigeria and hinted at military action against Islamic terrorist groups. The American president is said to have asked the Pentagon to prepare for a security operation. Trump says he is willing to go this far because of the violence against Christians in the West African country and the Nigerian government's inability to protect them. The figures tell a more nuanced story. In Nigeria, tens of thousands of people have been killed by jihadist terrorist violence since 2009. But these are mainly people with an Islamic background. Everyone is at risk. Of the 220 million Nigerians, roughly half are Christian and half are Muslim. Most Christians live in the south. Most Muslims live in the north. Jihadist groups such as Boko Haram, which have split into factions, mainly carry out attacks in the predominantly Muslim north. They want to impose their own interpretation of Sharia law, but you can't reduce the victims they claim to a single faith, according to Malik Samuel, researcher of Good Governance Africa. Many factors are at play. The economic crisis, high unemployment, already mentioned, climate change, and Nigeria's historical inability to protect its citizens. All citizens, not just Christians. Organizations that track violence report no proof that Christians are being killed more often than Muslims in Nigeria, a country where the population is almost evenly split between the two faiths. A presidential advisor told the BBC that any military operations against jihadist groups should be conducted jointly. Nigeria would be open to receiving US assistance in fighting Islamic insurgents, but emphasized that Nigeria remains a sovereign nation. He added that the jihadists are not singling out any one religion, as their attacks have claimed the lives of people from all religious backgrounds and even those without any faith. President Bola Tinubu has said that Nigeria upholds religious tolerance and that the country's security problems affect citizens of all faiths in all regions.